Hey everybody, Alex here, and welcome to another video. Recap, finito of Chapter 1 for January of 2021, I guess. So yeah, naming convention here. Pretty much, I think what I'm going to do in place of the games I finished of the month video, because it's going to be kind of mismatched. I'm thinking at the end of every month that will go along with the pickle video will be kind of like a recap, or basically the little variety show idea I was thinking of doing originally. Just because I don't, unless I finish a lot of games, I don't really see a purpose to making one video for each and just making extraneous videos and whatnot. So at least that's what I'm thinking. So this is going to be pretty much what happened, I guess, in January, because there was a lot of stuff. So I'm going to put timestamps below based on what I talk about. I didn't take any sort of notes this time, it's just I have it up here. And we're just going to roll with it that way. So I guess in terms of the big news stuff, we got this whole Gamestop fiasco. Personally, I did not get into it. My heart can't take this sort of anxiety, but this is from an economic standpoint, it's a big deal. It really it kind of just goes to show, like, the system works when it wants to work, and then when somebody finds a way to, make it work, it's a problem, I guess. So as of this recording, it's still going. For all I know, regulations from the SEC or some sort of like stopgap will be put in place by the time this goes up, depending on when I throw it together. But ridiculous stuff. And I have a friend who is knees deep in this whole thing. So it's like on a daily basis, he's already into crypto. So it's like between the crypto and this, it's like I feel like I am trading, but he's doing it with his own money. So I don't know. It is kind of ridiculous, though, if you really think about it. And it really did make me think, taking the whole stock price thing out of it, we're seeing this like with, GameStop and AMC. And obviously 2020 was not kind to anybody with a sort of retail footprint. But, everybody's been saying, myself included, the writing has been on the wall for GameStop for a long time. And it's basically just clawing its way out of the coffin and then getting slowly dragged back in, kind of like Scrooge in a Disney Christmas Carol, or Mickey's Christmas Carol rather. But it also really just makes me think that the economy itself is really against this sort of thing too. In terms of, like, you see like a struggling company and hedging, I guess you could say. It just really goes to show, like, the system does itself in. I guess you could, at least that's how I see it. And as much as I really dislike GameStop at this point, and I personally, unless there is something ridiculous or something exclusive, I really don't shop there anymore. I haven't renewed my Gamers Club or anything. It's just, there's no point. Is it even called the Gamers Club? I don't even remember. Power Up Pro? I don't even see. The Best Buy program, which is obviously now defunct, was always a lot better. And while Best Buy does not do as many deals as they used to anymore, personally, I feel like the points there matter more because I can use them on more stuff. Anecdotally, I said, like, we should really get a new oven. I could use said points to take $10 woohoo off of an oven, like that sort of thing. But it's really, in a way, it is unfortunate too, because we're talking about the livelihood of the employees, we're talking about the livelihood of people, whether it is in the 0.01% or the greater scheme of things. Either way, people's livelihood is affected, and I think everybody's already been beat to hell and back after 2020, depending on how you look at it. But anyway, so that's enough about that. That was pretty much, like the big news of the month. But keeping it to games, I wanted to talk about Shenmue III, since I did finish that this month. That was supposed to be my chaser game after finishing Cold Steel 2. And Shenmue 3, I backed it on Kickstarter, and I honestly, and I know I've mentioned this 50,000 times, and I will eventually do it. I actually already made a thumbnail for it, so I kind of have to do it. I want to do a video on Kickstarter projects, not like a documentary thing or, pointing out shitty projects. Slopes Game Room does a much better job with the Kick Scammer series. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. It doesn't even pertain to gaming most of the time, but just other ways Kickstarter has been used, and it's really interesting actually. And it's kind of cool and weird to see how people have manipulated this system, but. Speaking of Shenmue III, I backed it on Kickstarter, and it really made me wonder, while all this was going on and up until the game's release, why was this a Kickstarter? And the only thing I can think of is they probably made a pitch to Sony originally, and Sony said, if you can show us demand from and funds, we'll give you X amount of money towards this project, kind of like a match, as it were, right? So the Kickstarter blows up, does its whole thing. Everybody's happy. Everything is wonderful. Game gets delayed. Okay, cool, whatever. Game gets delayed. Okay, cool, whatever. And all of a sudden, it's now exclusive to the Epic Store, which to me says they took more money. Plain and simple. There's no other reason why they would all of a sudden just change it from Steam to the Epic Games Store. So people are obviously pissed off. And then they said, oh, but you can change it to the PS4 version. Some people will be fine with that. Some people are PC gamers and remember from playing it on the Dreamcast and really don't want to go invest in other hardware because they've already invested a ton of money into their rig. But now you're telling them they have to either get it through the Epic Games Store, which they may or may not want to do, or they get on another console, or they eventually wait. I think until it's on Steam. I think it is now. Pretty sure it is now. Okay, all for the sake of money. And then the game is coming out, and Best Buy has a beautiful steelbook for pre-ordering the game. As a Kickstarter backer, I get a cardboard sleeve. Let that sink in. A cardboard sleeve. And I'm thinking they're going to do the right thing. And they're going to eventually give like an add-on option to get said steelbook. Never came. So my dumbass, who really likes steelbooks, goes to Best Buy, buys Shenmue III again, gets the steelbook, then returns the game, thinking, because you can do this with Best Buy, by the way. If you do pre-ordering, you return it. If you don't return everything, including like steelbooks and all that stuff, they just deduct the difference. So the steelbook, I think, was $20. So basically, I paid $20 for a steelbook. Okay, not so bad. But when the person rang up the receipt, I don't know if they were training or not, and they actually just gave me the full amount back. So I lucked out. But here's the kicker. I got the retail version before I got my shipped version from Kickstarter. And I think they purposely shipped it out a week earlier. I think. Because I think Bloodstained had a similar issue or something like that. But I remember it was being shipped before the retail came out, but for whatever reason, I got it after the retail version came out. And to add further insult to injury, the game dropped in price like 2 weeks later by $20 to $39.99. So from a backer perspective, as somebody who had already given his $60 to this project, I think at this point 3 years ago, I was kind of over it. I was like, whatever, it's Shenmue. It's fine. It's fine. It's Yu Suzuki. He wants to finish his game. I get it. It's an artist thing. I get it. That being said, though, there's only so much nonsense a person can take. And I'm not just talking about me. Trust me, at the end of the day, I got the game, I played the game, I finished the game. I have thoughts on the game. And some people, this was a really big deal. Adam Korlick went on and on about it, and I'm not putting words in his mouth. He was very involved with this project from what I understand. Not with the actual Kickstarter, but like with the marketing and all that stuff, which is awesome, and that's really cool. But at the same time, I think he put up a video maybe a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, towards the end of 2020, because we're, as of this recording, 2021, saying he just got like one of his Kickstarter backer things. The game came out in 2019. I get production, I get pandemic, I get all this stuff, but again, there's only so much you can take. Overall, it kind of puts a sour taste in your mouth. And it kind of makes me think that this was not so much about having a game being made that was always a commercial failure, or at least commercially difficult to justify when it was on the Dreamcast and on the Xbox for us here in the States. It almost seems to be like they just don't know how to manage the money. And they don't know how to manage time. I don't know. I'm not in the industry. If anybody out there is in the industry, you know better than I do. I'm just talking from an outside perspective. But I've seen this with so many Kickstarters where I just see the money is just being mismanaged. And I understand there's smaller teams, but one Kickstarter, this is turning into a Kickstarter video, but anecdotally, one game I backed, it eventually came out, but the head developer quit mid-project because he got a better job. Apparently, they never heard about a non-compete contract or a no-break contract or an extended clause contract or anything like that. Apparently, with all the money spending they did, they forgot to hire a legal advisor. To me, it just doesn't make any damn sense. So anyway, I have finally played Shenmue III here in 2021, and here's what I have to say about it. It's Shenmue. It is definitely Shenmue. It's not modernized in any way. It's not updated graphically. It is, but it's not really graphically updated. I mean, graphically it is updated, but character design all looks the same. But that's where I kind of am happy and disappointed all at the same time, because the game mechanically feels like it did when it was released back in the day, which I get. I finished 1 and 2 in the past year or so. And realized I apparently never finished 1 because I didn't remember the ending. But if you're going to release it 20 years later, and there's a meme about the main character leaving a cave after 20 years, I would honestly expect you to at least update it a little bit for modern conventions, or at the very least give an option. The game operates on a traditional adventure game style. There's no quest markers or anything like that. You have to figure it out through conversation yourself. And for some people, that's fun and exciting. For some people, that's arduous and tedious and just whip out a walkthrough. And I'll be honest with you, the environments, there's only 2 areas, and they're not interesting at all. They are so cookie cutter that I just could not give a rat's ass, as it were, right? There's an arcade. It did not have that Sega charm. And that's obviously due to licensing. I think they can show Space Harrier because I think he owns it. And, I imagine Sega threw a couple of bones with a few things, but ultimately it's very neutered by comparison. There's redemption machines. I'm like, okay, that's more commonplace in the aughts, not so much in the 80s, but okay. And then, there's Lucky Hit, because there always has to be fucking Lucky Hit. But there's Lucky Hit like every 3 blocks. And then with the character design, Ryo looks fine. Shenmue looks fine. Some other character, which I'm not going to spoil, looks fine. The main antagonist, Lan Di, looks fine. But every other character looks like something out of an 80s, 90s anime. Like, they look super cartoony by comparison. And it makes me wonder, who approved this? And I obviously I had to be Yu Suzuki. And I understand it's the vision, but they look so starkly different to the main characters, I couldn't unsee it. The voice acting is terrible, which was to be expected. I'm actually happy it's terrible. It's definitely intentional at this point. And it's great for that. And the dialogue is stilted and awkward. And it's great for that. It is very much Shenmue. But it didn't progress anything. It didn't grow in any way other than using the Unreal Engine, which I'll be honest with you, there are so many rolling pan shots. I'm like, this looks like a tech demo. This is what you use to test as a benchmark to see if your card can handle a new video game, I'm sounding old now, a new game on your PC. So you can go, okay, I get 59 frames per second if I do this, this, and this, but if I turn this off, I get 120. There's a lot of that. And I couldn't help but think this is just shoved in. Like, they had to shove it in, they had to shove it in. And then you get to the end of the game, and it's very anticlimactic. I mean, there's a huge climax, but you really don't feel fulfilled. And then here's the big one. There is obviously going to be another game. If there is another game, I'm going to put it out there. I enjoyed this enough where I would play the 4th game. I would love to see how this eventually ends. But I can't help but feel Yu Suzuki ran out of ideas 20 years ago. Because the way this kind of leads up and ends just seems like somebody just trying to create a stopgap to get to the next big piece because they don't know how to fill it in. That's how I see it. I could be totally wrong. Maybe this was a proof of concept. I have no idea. But as somebody who finished the game, I cannot help but feel that way. And it's really disappointing. But if you did play Shenmue 1 and 2, I will say this is definitely worth a play just to see what the hell happened. But I'm telling you to curb your expectations. Do not expect this to be a huge game. Some people already want a Metacritic. I think it has like a 60, 70. A lot of people are wishing it was more modernized. And I would say I'm in that boat to an extent. But at the same time, I also acknowledge that this game was supposed to come out 20 years ago. Like, let's just be honest. It was supposed to come out, we'll say 19 or 18 years ago. And it very much kind of holds on to that using some modern graphical stylings, but it doesn't cut it in today's gameplay, I don't think. Ultimately, people have way too many options for games. And, unlike, some people who play RPGs most of the time, a clunky system is a big deterrent. And it makes people stop playing them because they have tons of options. They have way more options than they did back in the late 90s. They did. They do. Sorry. And that's case in point here. After I finished Shenmue, I decided next game I'm going to play is Ys 9, which comes out as of this recording in 2 days. So I'm not really going to jump into anything because I want to stick with longer format stuff. So I figured, let me play something as a time waster. So I pop in Star Wars Rogue Squadrons. I have never thought of this until I played this game. EA has made 4 Star Wars games. Battlefront 2, Squadrons, and then the Jedi game I can't remember the name of, Jedi Dark Souls. That game was great. For me personally, Battlefront sucked. Battlefront 2 was a little bit better, but ultimately I bounced off of it. And Squadrons I bounced off of after the 3rd mission. Now, mind you, this game is primarily meant for online. And honestly, I just wanted a good dogfighting game because I love X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I thought those were great. I also loved, I think it was X-Wing Academy, I think it was, or Rebel Academy, something like that. It was basically a mashup of the two. That one was really good as well. And I also liked the first Rogue Squadron game on the GameCube. Now, mind you, I bounced off of the new Ace Combat because I just got really frustrated with it. This, I fell asleep. The gameplay is very much follow this guy to this point, kill a bunch of TIEs or kill a bunch of Republic fighters, and then rinse and repeat over and over and over and over. You get some aesthetic stuff. You can fix up your loadout. All that stuff is great. But the dogfighting, I will tell you, it is so slow. And it is utterly fucking boring. Maybe online, it is better. But that's what made me really think, like, of all the Star Wars games I've played, because that's the other part of this, I went on a Star Wars kick this month. I decided from the beginning of the month I was going to rewatch all the movies in chronological order, leading up to finally watching Mandalorian Season 2. But I was going to squeeze that in. Forget the Clone Wars. Great show, but I'm not going through all those episodes. But going through the movies, yes, all the movies in chronological order. Right now, I'm on Jedi. And I'm basically doing one a weekend. But here's the thing I realized, like, while doing this and when this happened, of all the Star Wars franchise video games, I have bounced off of and not liked a majority of them, which I never realized until now. The Super Star Wars games really didn't care for them. Rebel Assault 2 was awesome. Rebel Assault 1 is hard, and I just didn't care for it. The X-Wing and TIE Fighter games were great. Jedi Academy, Knight, and Outcast are great. But then you get into you get into the EA games, essentially. And it's totally ruined. Even the original Battlefront games from, I think it was Pandemic Studios, I think. Not so much. Star Wars Rebellion, which was a RTS game, was kind of like Age of Empires. That was okay. But for the most part, the action-based ones, like I just didn't click. I love the Force Unleashed games, but I don't know. Like I really expected myself to like this one, considering I've really wanted another Star Wars dogfighting style game, and this one just didn't do it. They gave you a taste of it in Battlefront 2, and that was actually fun. This different studio, I think, and it just did not hit any nail on the head, and I was just so disappointed with it. And after, like I said, after that third mission, I just bounced off of it. And even with, like, in the case of, bringing this back into Shenmue, there was a lot of stuff where I kind of just sat there and I was like, oh my god, are we really doing this right now? But I couldn't bounce off of it because I actually had some sort of investment in it. I wanted to know what happened with the mirrors and Rio and Shenmue. I wanted to know. In Star Wars Squadrons, I just didn't give a shit. Now, you probably could say that's because I was looking for something to waste time. That's fine, but that's really not the case. I just wanted something to play because I've been binge watching ReZero. For those of you who have never heard of this anime, I don't know how I only found out about it because it has a game coming out, or it had a game come out 2 days ago. And it sounded interesting enough to me where I was like, all right, let me watch the show so I can make head and tails out of this, because the game apparently takes place in between season 1 and 2 in an alternate timeline, as they do. And I've just been obsessed with it. And I think over the course of 2 days, I've watched half of season 1. And it is so interesting. I think it's written by the guy who did Steins Gate, or he oversaw it or something. Essentially, the main character, Natsuki Subaru, he dies and he gets stuck in a time loop in a fantasy world, which he thinks is a video game. I don't know what it is yet, so if you know, don't ruin it. But he gets caught in this world, and basically it plays out like an adventure game, kind of, where he has to solve puzzles so that he doesn't die and he progresses in his life. And it's kind of, all the deaths are gruesome because it is very much kind of follows that visual novel style. So basically he gets bad ends and then stuff progresses, but he learns and he remembers things, kind of like a 999 game. And he uses that knowledge to try to solve whatever the problem may be. And it's interesting because you kind of see the characters evolve. Like, there was one character who I really didn't like to start, but once he figured out that path forward, I really felt bad for the person. I just in general, I came to have a positive emotional response. I'm being vague because I don't want to ruin it, but I was like, okay, I'm into this. I am really into this. Why do I have a feeling the game isn't good? And people are kind of 50-50 on it. It's like, okay, it takes place in between this, but it really, you have to watch the show to get it, and maybe you have to be a super fan to get it. So I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely going to finish season 1, but I think in terms of the game itself, it's on the Switch and the PS4. I'm going to wait for a price drop to pick that up. And leading up to that, well, actually not leading up to that, I guess following up to that, as I said, Ys 9 comes out on Tuesday, the 2nd of February, Groundhog Day, one of my favorite holidays, one of my favorite movies, with one of my favorite actors. And I'm going to play that next. And then from there, I think I'm going to go directly into Bravely Default 2. Bravely Default is a personal favorite of mine. I've loved that ever since Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light. And then I will pick right back up into the Cold Steel quadrology with Cold Steel 3. At least that's the plan for now. And I guess as an aside, because I'm hitting almost half an hour now, with this whole new format thing, there will be, pickup videos are not going to be an entry. Excuse me, because I'm pretty much just going to do them as I have stuff, because if the last one is any gives you any idea, it's not going to be like it used to be. I don't think, at least. Actually, maybe February will be, but so they're not technical entries. It's just like, hey, look what I spent my money on. But with the actual journal entries, there's going to be like this. It's going to be like a recap, and then there's going to be topical stuff and game stuff. So I do have some ideas in mind. I already mentioned I do want to do a Kickstarter-y one. I am going to wait for some additional time, because I don't want to put a date on it, as it were. I kind of just want to give thoughts because I've backed some good stuff, I've backed some bad stuff, and I've backed some stuff that I've just never seen. And I know everybody's in the same boat. And it's kind of like I just want to put it to bed and see how I see it, because from a business perspective, based on what I've done in my own professional life, there's just so much stuff that leaves me scratching my head, and I want to know who's in charge of these things. Um, and I guess really that's it. Yeah, that's really it. So that was it. January 2021's a wrap. I've been Alex, and I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.